Welcome to the November edition of CityBiz, coming to you from the Fairfield Arts and Convention Center. It's at the end of November. We're coming right up to Thanksgiving and the tree lighting ceremony. So I'm your host, Melinda Arndt. Here's Councilperson Michael Halley. He's going to be filling us in on what's been going on with some of our upcoming street projects and also park projects and some other news. Welcome to the show, and thanks. Hi, Michael.
Hello, glad to be here as always.
It's just part of my day today. Yeah. So I think right before we started, you were mentioning projects that have been voted on and what the next steps might be.
Well, we were talking about the work session. City Council had a work session prior to our last council meeting, and what we did was we heard from each department head, from all the city departments, talking about capital expenditures, so new equipment that they might need to replace old equipment. And so it was basically a snapshot of what they're going to need next fiscal year and the years coming. And so it's just a great way to kind of prime the council as to what's coming in terms of, for example, the fire department has a rather old pumper truck. It's a 1995 pumper truck. So by law, it really should have been replaced in 2015. You're supposed to keep them, 20 years or newer. And so we've got the money, set aside for that, and we'll be making that purchase, I believe, next fiscal year. But that's just an example of all kinds of equipment, all kinds of departments. The water department needs new purifiers, and that's going to be an expenditure. But luckily, on the water department side, our rates will not need to go up to pay for those new filters, which is always good news.
Yeah.
So it was just kind of a snapshot from each department of what to expect in the future. Parks had some interesting things to discuss. The restroom at Chautauqua Park is getting a little bit hard to maintain, and the shop building out there is kind of falling apart. So the idea would be to build a new shop with the restroom as part of it, public restroom as part of it, and then instead of having two buildings maintained, just have the one. So that's an idea that was out there. So yeah, just more of that kind of thing. And then for the streets specifically, the city is contracted with French Rent-A-Car engineering firm to do a street inventory, and it's being rated by a number of criteria. Essentially, emergency routes get more priority, and then main arterial routes, and the condition in terms of the bumpiness factor. You can have a road that's bumpy but is actually still structurally sound versus one that may be smoother but is disintegrating. So there's all these different factors that go into it.
So you can't tell by what you're experiencing as you bump over it in your vehicle.
In terms of what really needs to be worked on sooner rather than later, no, that's not the only criteria.
Okay.
So we'll get this priority list from French Rent-A-Car, and that'll help guide which streets are fixed sooner rather than later. Now the city is paying off some bond debt that we took out in 2010, I believe, for streets, several $1 million to do a lot of street repair. And then we have to pay that back, and that's through property tax. Once it's paid off, we can do it again. And this is just one way that we keep the streets maintained, because the amount that's available every year is not enough by itself to maintain our streets. We're always looking for grants as well, which we've successfully got a grant to pay for 4th Street from the railroad tracks to Broadway. That'll be done, I think, in 2022 or 3. But the funds are ours. It's just a matter of when they're available.
Interesting. So this is interesting to me because, streets that you travel on a regular basis, you wonder, man, when are they going to get around to this street? And now we know the criteria that's used as well as the timeline. My goodness.
Yeah, so we'll see something that the public can look at probably in the near future in terms of the priority list. But the priority list, again, will be a guiding document, and then funding and availability of funding really drives which streets get fixed when.
So there's that one. And then, of course, downtown streets, one-way or two-way?
Yep, so council voted whether or not to allocate a portion of local option sales tax funds that were available this fiscal year. So the city's fiscal year starts on July 1st and ends on June 30th every year. So the fiscal year that we're in right now, there was $150,000 unallocated. It was actually a clerical error that it wasn't allocated because it wasn't known that it was available. So about half of that, $74,500, could have gone towards restoring 3 blocks of Broadway Avenue and 3 blocks of Court Street back to two-way. I say back because it was two-way before 1967, for a number of reasons. Basically ease of travel, especially for visitors, but essentially kind of boost the downtown businesses, who were 37 out of 38 in favor of the conversion, or not to spend those funds on that, but spend them on, basically I think the project that the council decided to move on will be putting an overlay on the street that goes into Waterworks Park.
Interesting.
So
okay.
that, was kind of an either or, and we had to allocate those funds so we could use them this fiscal year. So the vote was 3 in favor, 3 opposed. Now, just like with any sort of race, like the mayoral race, you have to get past the halfway mark for it to be a win.
Okay, so 50%, a tie means
tie is a failed vote. So it's not going to happen this fiscal year. But the council did authorize to spend some funds on a comprehensive study to see about including Main Street. So that means our city engineer has to reach out to the Department of Transportation and get their input on how they feel about southbound traffic crossing Burlington on Main Street. So that intersection, if anyone's ever there midday and you're trying to travel, say, north on Highway 1
yes.
or Main, you might wait several cycles of the light to actually get through, because most of the traffic is turning left onto Burlington, turning west onto Burlington, and that time of day there are usually pedestrians crossing. So the light turns green, they can't go yet, pedestrian crosses, 1, maybe 2 vehicles goes before the light turns red. So it's very slow going in that whole intersection, and the reason that Main was excluded was partly because of that. And the DOT may say, we want you to do a $20,000 traffic study on that intersection before we'll make a determination. So it's kind of slowing things down a bit, but no one on the council said they were opposed to the idea as a concept, just not to funding this version of it right now.
Okay, so this could come up again. Stay tuned.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. So we're not sure when, but after the study, we'll look at it in more detail.
And then there's another road thing. We've talked about it in the last couple of sessions here. The possibility of either a stoplight or a roundabout on South Main, where the Casey's and the hospital is, right?
Yep. So that project, mostly DOT funded, will convert South Main from Fillmore down to Libertyville Road from 2 lanes to 3. So 2 lanes and then a turn lane in the middle, a 10-foot paved trail on one side and a 5-foot paved sidewalk on the other, and either 4-way stop with stoplights or a roundabout at the intersection of South Main and Libertyville Road. So the council, after hearing from the engineering firm we hired, voted to recommend to the DOT the roundabout rather than the traffic lights. And it just because it met all the criteria of safety, low operating expense, and keeping traffic moving. It actually moves traffic more fluidly and reducing the risk of crashes. So at a T intersection, there's always the risk of someone going through the light when it's red, and usually it's a collision from the side. And a roundabout, you can't really hit anyone from the side because of the curved nature. And so they're statistically much safer, and also for pedestrians. So again, it's only a recommendation. The Department of Transportation will make the final determination, and we're expecting that sometime in Q1 2020. So then the first few months of 2020, we should know. All righty.
And then, as we discussed last month, I think, it would be at least 2 or 3 years before any of that work, before we'd see it. But so, this is how long things take.
Yeah, there's a lot of what they call right-of-way acquisition. So
there's
about
that
7 feet of property on both sides would have to be purchased from the property owners all along the corridor. And paid fair market value. So a private assessor will come and value that, and the project will pay for that. So it's not taking it, it's buying it. And then moving utilities, there's so much that goes into something like this. But yeah, it'll be a little while before we actually see it, but we'll find out about what the final design will be in early next year.
Cool. So moving from that to some other outdoor things that you may have noticed, if you're downtown much, you might have noticed some trees are now at the Petra Park.
Yep. We planted the trees in the backside, put in some soil, and then the planters will get their plantings in spring.
Right,
So
but progress being made
progress is made,
on
that's
that
right.
park.
Yep.
And then in some other parks, you might have noticed some of the signs are down.
Yes, so this
But
is...
that's not permanent, right?
No, temporary. So what the park department really goes into winter mode, and so they're obviously not mowing grass or anything during that time of the year, so they do a lot of indoor work. So they'll paint the signs, they'll paint park benches, and do a lot of kind of internal repair work. So they're just getting a fresh coat of paint so they look extra good.
Yeah, now were there any other, parking. We were talking
That's
about
right.
parking.
This is a big deal for anyone who lives downtown.
I knew there was parks and parking.
Yep. So for kind of brief history, and I've been here since '93, and in that entire time, the city has prohibited, and earlier, any parking overnight in the downtown business district from 2 a.m. to 6 a.m. So anybody who lives downtown has to park off the square and walk over to where they live. Well, over time, more and more upstairs apartments have been renovated, more and more people are living downtown. And the reasoning behind it was simply so that the cars aren't parked there those few times a year when snow removal or street cleaning is going on.
Yep, snow removal, street cleaning, and once in a while, getting ready for some
Special
parade
event,
or car show or whatever
Yep.
the next day.
For special events, which are, not something that's regular, but does happen.
Yeah.
So an interested citizen came to the committee I chair, Public Safety Transportation, and we discussed it. And he had done his homework and found out that Mount Pleasant, Washington, and Oskaloosa allow overnight parking downtown, except for in times of snow removal and street cleaning. So the council approved amending our ordinance to be the same. Downtown parking overnight will be allowed, except for in instances of snow removal and street cleaning. We need to work out a system to let people know when those things are going to happen.
Yeah.
So that they don't get towed. But that would be what would happen if you park overnight and it's a snow emergency and there's snow. You can and will be towed at your own expense. And what was really refreshing was that this gentleman who lives downtown said, "I'm fine with that. I think anybody who got towed once would learn their lesson and not get towed." But again, we're trying to figure out, is it a radio announcement, website, Facebook page,
Through your
newspaper?
landlord?
Exactly. That
Maybe
was the
through
one
your
idea.
landlord.
If we contact each property owner,
Yeah.
then they disseminate that information, because I found out that there are little email chains for people who live in a
Yeah,
certain
'cause
property.
The owners know who their tenants are.
Yep. So Melinda's got it. She's a smart cookie here.
That's the
probably
first
the
thought
way
that
to go.
occurred.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's efficiency.
Yeah.
So that's one way that'll likely be done. If they're contacted and told, then they can spread that information. But yeah, I talk about this with the RAGBRAI. We tried to really avoid any towing.
Yeah, of course.
And we still had a
of course.
couple cars. One person knew about it, but was out of town. But we still had one person say, "I don't know what you're talking about. I didn't know I had to move my car."
Wow.
And so there's a little bit of that responsibility is on citizens to stay informed. So if you're watching this, good job, you're staying informed. That's a little bit of your responsibility, so that when you hear about things, you don't get caught off guard after the fact, and you can have your input at committee meetings and at council meetings. So that's one reason I really like doing this, and I thank you for doing it. We're in Thanksgiving mode, so thank you, Melinda. Thank you, Jason. Thank you for everyone who's watching. And
it sounds like a win-win. Like in terms of Thanksgiving, you can have your pie and eat it too. Well, they can have their parking space and stay overnight.
Yes, except for a few times a year.
Except for a few times.
I think it's going to be a great change, and it might not take effect until January. So if you're hearing this, don't start parking overnight yet. The law isn't changed yet. It takes changing the ordinance, which is a little of a slow process. So probably January before it's done officially. So we'll see if we can do it any faster, we will.
But it's coming, and a few other things that are coming up. Thanksgiving, of course, if you're watching this either Wednesday evening or on Thanksgiving, happy Thanksgiving.
Yep, it's pie time.
And drum roll, the next day, Friday evening, The lights on the square will come on. If you've been going around, coming downtown at all, you've noticed everything, all the decorations are up.
Yep, it's going to be fun.
It's always magical, Christmas caroling, and be there by 6. You see the lights. It's all dark, and yet all around you, there's so many people, but you can't see them until the lights go on. I mean, you know people are there, but it's like really dark.
Well, I saw 5:30. Maybe 5:30 is when they do the pre.
Maybe. Oh, okay.
Because I
maybe.
think that's when they do some singing, and then they're going to announce who
But I
gets
think the singing's almost in the dark, isn't it? I don't know.
Yeah,
anyway,
maybe. Well,
you'll find
then
out. Get to
they'll
the
name
square.
who gets to flip the switch.
Yeah.
So it's always some special community member who gets that honor.
Yeah.
Flipping the switch and making all the kids start applauding. It's always a sweet moment. I used to take my kids down. Now they're maybe a little too old for it, but I'm going to go anyway.
Oh, they can take pictures of other kids. Another cool, if you have kids with you, or in my case, I'll have grandkids with me, the line to go to Santa's candy cane house starts forming a little after 5, actually. People start lining up, and there's a new Santa's candy cane house, so that's worth seeing. But yeah, that line starts forming, and then by 5:30, it's already halfway down the block and going beyond. And that's all right. That's part of the fun.
So come early.
And then you see the lights go up.
Come early if you want to see Santa.
Yeah. And listen to the music. So did we miss anything? Can we think of any other
I think we got it all.
Updates?
That was pretty much all of it. I mean, there's always more to talk about, but we want to let them off early so they can go eat some more pie.
And let's remind people about landlord communication.
Oh, yeah, this is a good one. All right, public service announcement. If you rent a property in the city of Fairfield and you ever feel that it is not meeting standards, so I've heard stories of people saying their heat went out in the winter, that's against the law. There are animals living in there that aren't your pets, that's against the law. So anything that seems substandard, call City Hall, 641-472-6193. Ask for rental inspector Scott Vaughn. If he's not in, which he's usually not because he's out doing stuff, leave him a message. He will get back to you. He will come inspect on a spot inspection. His inspections are somewhat on a schedule, but if somebody makes a complaint, he will come inspect. And if something like that is out of commission, then it's not right that you need to live in those conditions. You don't.
And this is after you've been trying to communicate with your landlord and it's just not working.
So that's your out. There's always somebody that can help you. In this case, it's Scott Vaughn. So please give him a call. We got to hold rental property owners to the standards that are expected of them. Because this stuff is not, no one's expecting them to have marble countertops. We just expect them to have the heat working, for example, through the winter. Yeah. So that's 641-472-6193. Scott Vaughn, he's your guy.
All right, there's your public service announcement to wind up. But we hope you have a wonderful Thanksgiving, and as we cruise on into the holidays, season of the winter, we always bring in the colorful lights to replace the sun, which is not up as long at this time of the year. So wishing you a lot of light. Enjoy the lights.
Yeah, we'll see you the week before Christmas for next CityBiz.
The week before Christmas. See you then. Over and out for CityBiz.